We know that survival in medieval times was often a dangerous struggle to exist on a daily basis. Whether it was famine, plagues, war, or any other pending catastrophe, death seemed just one ugly circumstance away from your humble doorstep. Naturally, people were aware that violence was also part of the vicious challenges you could face at any moment. Though for residents of one late medieval English city, you were 5 times more likely to be murdered there than in the crowded streets of London. Are you astonished? Welcome to Oxford, the medieval murder capital of England. Oxford, the murder capital of medieval England. Oxford, England is home to one of the world's great universities. Over centuries, hundreds of famous people walked its hallowed grounds in pursuit of education and achievement. Though in medieval times, the pursuit of knowledge also meant the pursuit of various habits, vices, and violent behavior. For those students with a particularly nasty disposition, this included murder. The research team Medieval Murder Maps at the University of Cambridge are mapping known murders from the medieval period in England based on 700-year-old coroners' inquests. These rolls are catalogues of both suspicious or sudden deaths as determined by a jury comprised of local residents of good reputation. These jurors established how incidents occurred, gathered witness statements, evidence, and named a suspect. This information was obtained through various methods, including investigation, following up rumors, and gathering leads given by eyewitnesses. Written in Latin by a coroner scribe, these detailed accounts included names, locations, events, and even the value of weapons involved. During the early 14th century, Oxford had a murder rate that made the capital of London seem almost genteel in comparison. Surprisingly, it was various youthful seekers of great knowledge that also possessed a thirst for extreme violence. Of all the societal groups studied by the researchers at Medieval Murder Maps, Oxford's late medieval student population were the most murderous by a wide margin. In fact, this city's murder rate is estimated to have been 4 to 5 times greater than figures for London and York during this same period. Confirming the violence lurking within academic life at Oxford, these researchers found that 3/4 of the murderers were identified by the coroner as clericus. This was a term probably given to either students or staff members of the university. Ironically, 72% of the homicide victims were also given the same identification. In a city known as one of Europe's most significant learning centers at the time, these discoveries give a new meaning to the concept of ruthless academic competition. Homicide statistics for 1300s Oxford, which had a population of around 7,000 people and 1,500 students by the early part of the 14th century, almost defy belief. With an estimated murder rate at between 60 to 75 per 100,000 of population, this figure is 50 times higher than the homicide rate in modern English cities. So, what were some of the reasons behind the extreme violence in late medieval Oxford? Researchers feel the ageless leisure activities of young males, such as drinking alcohol and pursuing partners for romance, were key activities linked to such aggressive behavior. During such activities, when conflicts arose and fueled by intoxication, passions, or both, perpetrators defended their perceived honor with extreme violence. Student allegiances to regional fraternities are also suspected as being a key factor contributing to these high murder rates for medieval Oxford. Rivalries between scholars from different regions in the British Isles, whether Welsh, Irish, or English, bred various conflicts, despite residents being arranged according to their home regions. For instance, during the springtime of 1303 AD, Adam de Sorum, an Oxford student playing with his ball on a street, was suddenly attacked by 3 Irish scholars. In this homicide, the victim was stabbed in the throat and face. For another example of group rivalries turning into murder, we look at one fatal event which occurred one Thursday evening in 1298 AD at an Oxford High Street tavern. During this bloody incident, an escalating argument between students resulted in a large street brawl which included weapons such as swords and battle axes. One victim named John Burrell had, according to the coroner, a mortal wound on the crown of his head, 6 inches long and in depth reaching to the brain. Lust also figured prominently in the violence of medieval Oxford, where students' desires were more than academic pursuits. Such was the case when Marjorie de Hereford was murdered in the parish of St. Aldate in April of 1299 AD. An unidentified scholar escaped after stabbing her to death, apparently his brutal way of avoiding payment to the sex worker for intercourse. Though even a fellow student could not escape medieval street justice, which included volatile moral whims and standards. David de Treppenwee was murdered by a group of students after returning to their residence with a sex worker named Christiana of Worcester. These murderers were not brought to justice. A type of small knife called a whittle appeared to be a common weapon used in late medieval Oxford homicides. In civil life, this knife performed everyday tasks and had a deemed value of 1 penny. Staffs were also a common item for men of this period to both carry about and often used to commit acts of violence. To imagine the volatile and potentially deadly environment of 14th century Oxford, we shall refer to Professor Manuel Eisner, the lead investigator on this map research team and director at the University of Cambridge's Institute of Criminology. He states that Oxford students were all male and typically aged between 14 and 21, the peak for violence and risk-taking. These were young men freed from tight controls of family, parish, or guild, and thrust into an environment full of weapons, with ample access to alehouse and sex workers. As well, clashes between town and gown. Many students belonged to regional fraternities called nations, an additional source of conflict within the student body. Unlike modern times, there were no active police forces to bring these suspected criminals to justice. Here, research shows that women played a major role in calling out the perpetrators to account. It appeared that bystanders also played a key role, intervening in these events by shouting and making noise, which was known as raising a hue and cry. At this time, it was considered an adult male's social responsibility to do so. Unfortunately, these whistleblowers often risk becoming victims or perpetrators of crime themselves while performing this community obligation. Such an incident happened in the spring of 1303 AD when 2 Welsh scholars attacked a few passing students. The victims shouted out a hue, cry, which was answered by a student from Durham. As a result of this attempted intervention, he was beaten to death. The following is a quote on these circumstances by Dr. Stephanie Brown, a Cambridge historian and co-researcher. Before modern policing, victims or witnesses had a legal responsibility to alert the community to a crime by shouting and making noise. This was known as raising a hue and cry. It was mostly women who raised hue and cry, usually reporting conflicts between men in order to keep the peace. Furthermore, she stated that, "We do not have any evidence to show juries willfully lied, but many inquests will have been a best guess based on available information. In many instances, it is likely the jury named the right suspect, in others it may be a case of 2 + 2 = 5. Meantime, in the city of York during the same period, it is interesting to note their homicide victims and accused were from a completely different social group. Here, craftspeople, merchants, and artisans dominated the coroner's crime rolls for murder. Whether it was competitors, co-workers, or other tradespeople, life in the second most prosperous and populated city in medieval England could be lethal. This included a homicide involving one hat maker stabbing a competitor to death, while a tailor and draper were involved in a fight that ended in death. Nevertheless, there are some similarities with the medieval murder capital of Oxford. For instance, weapons were easily accessible and often carried by people as a matter of course. Unfortunately, with a prevailing sense of medieval street justice and handy arms, a minor altercation could easily escalate into murder. In London, these included incidences of public urination and eelskin littering that resulted in homicides. Shockingly, officers of public peace such as bailiffs, constables, and sergeants were also victims of Oxford's bloody violence. On a summer evening in 1324 AD, Richard Overhay, noted as the preserver of the king's peace, was seriously assaulted by 4 Oxford students that used swords, bucklers, and other arms. Later, he was found dead at his residence. In conclusion, Professor Eisner states, life in medieval urban centers could be rough, but it was by no means lawless. The community understood their rights and used the law when conflicts emerged. Each case provides a glimpse of the dynamics that created a burst of violence on a street in England some 7 centuries ago. Thank you for supporting us at Medieval to Modern. Please be sure to watch our next episode or one shown at the end of this video. Also be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and spread the word about this channel so we can create more exciting content. I wish you good tidings as we remember that sharing knowledge has been a noble deed throughout the ages.